Hello and welcome back to another It's Easy Being Green. We love talking about native plants and share in the vision for every yard in Northern Virginia to plant native plants. So we're delighted Margaret Fisher with the Plant Nova Natives campaign could join us today to tell us more about their campaign and some very easy steps that you can do a lot of good for very little effort. Hi, Margaret.
Hi.
It's good to have you here today.
Thank you.
Please tell us briefly about the Plant Nova Natives campaign, maybe highlight their mission and their vision.
The Plant Nova Natives campaign is a social marketing campaign which is trying to persuade everyone in Northern Virginia to start planting native plants in order to support and save really the songbirds, the bees, the butterflies, and all the more than human world that surrounds us.
Great. And it's a bit of a collective effort, I understand?
That's right. There's more than 40 organizations, public and private, that make up this campaign, as well as hundreds of individuals who are volunteering. We all have the same mission: get people to plant a native plant.
So here is the really important million-dollar question. Why plant native plants?
Well, thank you for asking. Well, Northern Virginia used to be covered by forests with a little bit of meadow here and there, but we've, of course, replaced that with buildings and roads, and they don't support wildlife, of course. But what isn't as obvious is that the plants that we install on our property also are largely useless for wildlife. So on a typical suburban property, most or even all of the plants come from other continents. And the biggest example of this is turf grass, which comes from Europe. All these foreign plants are nearly useless to the ecosystem. And even worse, many of the introduced plants have become invasive, taking over the little bit of natural lands that we have left and displacing the native plants there. So as a result, there's been a steady decline of the population of the animals that depend on native plants. The songbird population has fallen by nearly half in the past 40 years.
Yes, so why is this happening?
Well, it turns out that although adult songbirds eat seeds and berries as well as insects, their babies can only eat insects, primarily caterpillars. And most insects can only eat the plants with which they evolved, meaning the plants that were here before the arrival of Europeans. So in the case of caterpillars, we're mostly talking about native trees, such as oaks. If we take away the native plants, we take away the insects. No insects means no baby birds.
Well, Joe Tree Frog here, our mascot, wants to know, is it only the songbird populations that are falling?
No, this is across the board. So no insects also means no tree frogs, no toads, no bats, etc. It means no fireflies, no cicadas singing, no katydids. It also means no humans, because the ecosystem and our own food supply collapses without insects.
So again, Joe Tree Frog wants to ask, how specific is this connection between native plants and wildlife?
Well, it's just true for almost all insects and all the wildlife that depends on it. So, for example, every school child knows about the connection between monarch butterflies and milkweed species, but the monarch is only one example. The babies of all butterflies depend on their larval host plants, which are almost all native plants.
So tell us what we can do.
Well, this is why we've started the Plant Nova Natives campaign. We have it in our power to save the butterflies and the bees and the birds of Northern Virginia simply by adding native plants to our own yards. And of course, it helps not to spray insecticides, which would defeat the whole purpose. There are hundreds of beautiful native plants available for gardening and landscaping, and on the whole, their maintenance requirements are lower than introduced plants because they evolved here and are meant to be here. They require no fertilizer or pesticides. They don't need watering once they get established, and of course, they need no mowing. So Plant Nova Natives has developed a great many resources to help people decide what to plant and find out where to buy the plants. For instance, we have a full-color plant guide, which you can buy or download for free.
Well, we love free, F-R-E-E, free. We're also all about easy. So it's important for us to ask, Does this require a lot of gardening knowledge and time?
Not at all. Anyone can take some really easy steps that can do a whole lot of good. Starting from the easiest and working up from there, the very simplest thing a person could do is to plant a native shade tree in the middle of their lawn. This picture is Arlington's champion white oak tree. The white oak supports more species of caterpillars than any other plant. But then if you have some more energy, well, plant a few trees. And then if you want to put a little bit more effort in, put in some native shrubs such as mountain laurel or small flowering trees such as flowering dogwoods or redbuds. And ground covers such as English ivy are particularly prone to becoming invasive and destroying the ecosystem, and there are many wonderful native alternatives. But for people who actually enjoy gardening, it is actually a very simple thing to use native flowers instead of their introduced versions. Many of them are perfectly neat and tidy and very beautiful, so there's nothing lost. And if you really have ambitions as a gardener, you can put in a pollinator garden, meaning one that provides nectar all season for the butterflies, hummingbirds, and bees, as well as the larval host plants for their caterpillars. And then, if you also want to save the bay, you could replace some of your lawn with Virginia natives because that will reduce stormwater runoff. And if you really want to put in some effort, you could have put in a rain garden to prevent even more runoff.
Well, I love each and every one of these tips. They're all really quite easy to do. And where should people go for these details, Margaret?
Go to our website, Plant Nova Natives, www.plantnovanatives.org. We have just a ton of resources there to help people find what they need, and also to, if they're interested in spreading the word, to let them know how they can do that.
Great.
If you, the first thing you find when you go to our website is our pledge. I pledge to plant Nova Natives.
Excellent, which I've already done. So, Margaret, thank you so much again for joining us today. My name's Adele Quo, and remember, it's easy being green, planting Nova Natives in your yard. Back to the news desk.
All right, Adele.
Thank you,
Good
Adele.
news. Yeah, give the birds and the bees a chance and plant a tree, plant a shrub, plant a bush, and take it easy on the pesticides. Okay, where would we be without birds and bees?
I know.